guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Maria. If you watch this video and you enjoy it, don't be shy, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for any future videos on narcissistic abuse recovery and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So today I'm going to get into a very personal topic. I would actually like to tell you my story of narcissistic abuse. I had a client lately ask me, have you been through narcissistic abuse? And I realized that although I like to help other people, I've never really shared my own story. So here goes. So usually in a narcissistic family dynamic, there's at least someone that we call the truth teller. So this is somebody who goes through the abuse, but their eyes are wide open to what's going on, right? So they're not easily manipulated. They know exactly what's happening. And a lot of times this is the same person that counts down the days until they, graduate high school and can move away. Or when they do move away, they move the whole way across the country or to another, country. It's just wherever they can that is as far away from the dynamic that they grew up in. So anyway, we call these people truth tellers. And to be a truth teller is a very isolating place to be, right? Because you yourself knows the truth about the abuse, the emotional abuse that goes on, but there aren't too many people around that are there to support you in the way that you need that support and that validation. You get scared, So anyway, I am the truth teller. Just not every truth teller has a YouTube channel, but this is where we're at. So I began this journey with narcissistic abuse in 2017. I got into a relationship with someone. I was codependent without knowing, codependency was even a thing. And I got into this relationship. It moved very, very quickly. He would bring me 2 bouquets of flowers on every date. One for the beginning of the date, one for the middle of the date. Our first date was to Disneyland. He bought season tickets. Our second date was also to Disneyland. So it was this big whirlwind. I needed a new apartment. I needed to move, and I needed a cosign. And I let him know, even though the relationship was in the early stages of the relationship, but I told him because it was a dilemma that I was in at the time. So he right away was like, I will cosign it for you. How about I move in with you? So me, being kind of inexperienced and not even knowing that a narcissist was even a thing at this point, I was flattered and I was excited. I had never had a relationship where I lived with a boyfriend before, and this was all good news to me. And so very quickly, this is within a month of dating, we moved into an apartment together, and I thought we had this nice little life. He was a intern at UCLA Medical Center. He would tell me stories about the things they would talk about in surgeries, the food they had in the lounge, where he would sleep when he had to stay in the hospital overnight. He would tell me about how he would assist with C-sections, and how he would nurse the babies he would rock the babies to sleep at night in the nursery, and he had to tell a father that his baby had passed away and the father fainted. There was even a time that he and I were at Disneyland together, and I saw about an 11-year-old probably boy choking. Well, I grabbed him and I said, hey, you're in the medical field. This little boy's choking. He went over to the little boy, gave him a Heimlich. And I remember seeing this look on his face. He said to the father, because I could see that he didn't really know how to do it. And I saw, this look on his face, and he said to the father, I don't really know if this is working. But he was so calm when he said it. But thankfully, the piece of food or whatever it was went down into the boy's stomach and he stopped choking. So, like, thank God that situation turned out okay. But yeah, so anyway, he was an intern at UCLA Medical Center. After that, he would go to med school, and then after that, he was a manager at a restaurant, which is where I met him. So I just assumed this was his life. Being a codependent, I overlooked a lot of things. I wouldn't question him about school. He didn't, spend a lot of time at home studying or anything. He just had stories about the hospital. When I asked him about the hospital, I definitely could have asked a lot more questions, that's for sure. But I think I was so love bombed, and I was so in love with being loved like that. I had felt abandoned at points in my life, so I was self-abandoning, myself. I wasn't protecting myself. And like I said, I had no idea even what a narcissist was. So to me, it's just somebody that's telling me the truth and whatever. I went to another state. I went to Las Vegas to do a job. I would do promotional work for different companies, and I was gone for a week. I noticed that the communication between him and I was off. I didn't know where he was. He wasn't answering phone calls. It was just strange. So I was so sick to my stomach, because we have to trust our guts. Your heart is going to lie to you. Our heart will lead us into toxic relationships, right? But our gut always knows the truth. And my gut was telling me there is something seriously wrong. I went home a day early from Las Vegas. I quit the job. I, put his needs in front of mine as a codependent, and I came home, but I didn't tell him I was coming home. When I came home to the apartment, nothing had changed in the apartment. It was still the same way as it was when I left a week ago, and the garbage was still in the garbage can, whatever. Nothing had changed. So I freaked out, and I called him right away, and I told him get home. So he came home. I questioned him about this, and he told me he had been staying in the apartment, and he gaslighted me. He made me think that I was crazy and that I was just thinking that he hadn't been there, but he really had. So I knew it wasn't right. I wanted to trust him then, and then a couple hours later, I asked him, why don't you just tell me the truth? Where were you? He told me, well, a couple nights I stayed here, but a couple nights I stayed at my mom's house. So, so it was like, okay, that made a little bit more sense, but it still didn't add up. So I started, just like, I wonder if I ask him questions, the same questions over and over again, but at a different time, is he going to answer these questions differently? So I waited till the morning and I asked him again, hey, where did you say you were while I was gone? He said, I already told you. I stayed here I think once, and I stayed at my mom's house a couple nights. I was at the hospital. I stayed overnight at the hospital. Okay. So at this point, you would think I already put two and two together, but this is abuse. This is emotional abuse, and you want to believe someone, especially when you love them. So I started noticing I need to ask this guy the same questions more than once. And this is how I'm going to figure out, is he lying or not? This is when, my brain just went off. I need to figure this out. So I'm now in investigative mode. I don't want to go through the whole story because this is just going to be such a long video, but I will say that I ended up going back to Vegas for another job, and the job was a month long. It was in December 2017. And while I was there, he would come from Los Angeles to Las Vegas every week for a night and spend the night hanging out with me. He would take my laundry home, do my laundry, come back, hang out with me again for the night. Well, the communication was off again. And my gut was just, it was a mess. I knew something was so off. One week he brought my laundry back, and there was a pair of underwear in there that I didn't own. Well, sometimes he had done the other girl, my coworker's laundry too. So I figured they were hers. So I brought them over to her room and said, hey, this was in my stuff. And she said, they're not mine either. So I'm like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And why, if someone is cheating on you, would they be so careless to give you someone else's underwear, right? So, before I had left, I was talking to a girlfriend before I went to that job in Vegas, and I was home in LA. I talked to a girlfriend, and I told her about the situation, and she said, my boyfriend and I have this thing on our phone where we know where each other are all the time. And I'm like, okay, that would work. So I went home to, who is now my fiance. We had gotten engaged as well. He actually proposed to me at Disneyland. So this was, I think, 2 months into the relationship. He proposed to me at Disneyland. Again, I know I missed a lot of red flags. I didn't know. I was love bombed. Okay. You can relate. So I said to him, I had gone back to the apartment, and I said to him, it would help me to trust you more if we put these trackers on each other's phones. That way, when I'm in Vegas, you know where I am, and I can, build this trust with you again while you're in LA. And he was all for it. He was so excited for it. One other thing we did was we started going to couples therapy. And the couples therapist, she was just like, okay with everything. Like, she explained to him how I felt, explained to me how he felt. So everything was okay. So we're trying to build this relationship and build this trust. So I go to Vegas for the month of December 2017. He brings me this underwear. I'm like, this isn't mine. Okay. So I ask him about it. He says, I did it my mom did the laundry. So my mom did the laundry at her house. I don't know. It's probably my sister. It's probably my mom's, And at this point, I hadn't even met his parents. So I looked his mom up on Facebook. It was not his mom's underwear, needless to say. But, so anyway, I started watching this app pretty closely, this tracker app. And I noticed that he is never driving to UCLA Medical Center. And he's never driving to med school. He's going, there's some days when the tracker just doesn't even leave from our apartment. And then there's other times it goes to his mom's, then to an unmarked location, and then it'll go to the restaurant where he works and where I met him at. So that was legit, at least. So time went by, and I called the therapist, and I said to her something, there's something up. That he has this tracker and he's not going to UCLA, and I don't understand. And, all the people at the restaurant he worked at, they all think he works at UCLA Medical Center. They all think the same thing I think. So how could this be? He's never going there. She said, ask him. She said, call all the UCLA medical centers in Los Angeles. I kind of think it was 4 different places I called or something. And find out if he works there. Ask him why he has not been going to UCLA. So I asked him. He told me that he was depressed about our relationship and felt like things weren't going well. So he told his professors, and they gave him time off. This is med school. So I call all the UCLA medical centers. His name is not in any of their programs. He does not go to the school. His name is not at the school. His name is not at any UCLA. No one has ever heard of him. So at this point in the game, if you've gone through this kind of thing, you know that you have to play dumb. You have to play dumb if you want to figure out what happened. So I had the girl that is, my coworker in Las Vegas call him and say, there's something really wrong with Maria. You have to get here right away. Well, he drove to Las Vegas, and when he got there, I had him in front of me with all the information, and I asked him, where have you been? I know that you don't work at UCLA Medical Center. I called them all. I know that you're not in med school. And so he sat down with a smirk on his face, and he told me that during the days that he wasn't actually doing the job, that he got dressed in our apartment every morning and asked, how do I look? Do I look okay for the hospital? The stories he told me, the conversations he was telling me he had, all the stories about his coworkers. Okay, so now we know none of these things are true. This whole life was made up. And I asked, what have you been doing? Where have you been? Sitting across from me, he told me, there's this place across from UCLA Medical Center, and they test for cancer on rats, and I volunteer there. I didn't want to tell you that that's what I do. So I asked him again, what are you doing during the days that you say you're in med school? He said, I go to national parks. And I said, you go to national parks every day? He said, yeah, I do. I said, what are you doing at the national parks every day? He said, I'm contemplating life. Okay. So what are you doing every day when you say you're going to the hospital and to school? There's this professor that he was at my school, and he sees that I'm going through a lot with my relationship and stuff. So he lets me mirror him, like follow him and watch everything he does. And he gives me school credits for it so that I don't have to actually go to class. He told me about the professor's name, where he lives, the kind of stuff they do together. And I said to him, so on your phone, it doesn't show you going, in that direction. It doesn't show that you're going to this guy's house. So, he said, yeah, he gives me time off. He gave me time off because he knew I was going through things. So your professor in med school is giving you time off. Okay. So to make a long story short, I never found out exactly what he was doing every single day. I did find, different messages in his phone from other girls. I found messages in his phone telling other girls that he and I had broken up, and It was like a month before. Oh, we broke up. I'm good. I'm moving out. It's no problem. So what are you up to? All these things. So needless to say, that did not end well. It was incredibly dramatic and very painful, and it was the worst experience I have ever been through. And you would think that when my father died, it was the worst experience I've ever been through, but at least knowing my dad was like a great person helped. But this was a whole nother level. I went back to the psychiatrist and I told her, and she actually said, and this is a psychologist. This is a psychologist in downtown Los Angeles, so you can imagine how many different situations she sees, and how many different people, and like weird things. And she told me she's never seen this level of deceit before. So I went to Bali on a yoga and meditation retreat almost immediately after this. I was destroyed for 2 years. I couldn't believe that something like this could happen. Again, I did not know what a narcissist was. This is about the time I started researching them. I got obsessed with researching. I felt isolated. I didn't feel like I had support going through this. I felt like the people that should have been there for me were not there for me. And when I tried to get that kind of support from them, I heard a lot of, why do you want to talk about it? Isn't this painful to talk about? Like, why would you want to talk about it? So, that is extremely isolating, because when we go through this, which I don't just think he was a narcissist, by the way, like this is, we're on the sociopath realm of things at this point, but, so I didn't get the support that I needed by any means. I waited 2 years, and after 2 years, I thought I was ready to date again. I got into another relationship, and that was at the beginning of 2020. I noticed signs right away. I noticed red flags right away. At this point, I knew what a narcissist was. I was very hyper aware of narcissistic abuse. I did not know I was a codependent, and I did not know what codependency was. And I got into this relationship. I completely lost myself in the relationship. I forgot that I even had a say in anything. I just submitted. I let anything, it was about what he wanted, what I could do for him. Can I cook for you? Will that make you in a better mood? And to his defense, he was very upfront with saying, I get into these really bad moods, and I didn't treat my last girlfriend very well, but I said, I'm a really laid back person, and you don't have to worry about that with me. I won't make you angry. So we just continued on with the relationship. I was not happy, and I self-medicated because I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to feel anything. I just had the worst relationship in my life. Why would I want to know that I was going down that road again? I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see these red flags. So I just kind of turned a blind eye until one night when he got very, very angry about something very small. Like I think I had said, eventually one day I want to move to Bali, Indonesia and get like a little hut, and this has been my dream my whole life, and I was really excited about it. That was not okay with him, and I remember him yelling at me in circles. I didn't know I was being gaslighted, but I also didn't know what narcissistic rage was. But he was yelling at me in circles. I was confused. I was just sitting there silent. I was in the freeze trauma response. My eyes were wide open. He was saying to me, why are you looking at me with goldfish eyes? I was so confused as to even what I was being yelled at about. I just thought in my mind, just comfort him and it'll all stop. Just go along with what's being said and it'll stop. So he went on throughout the night, getting mad about different things. I did not retaliate or yell back. I was too scared. I remember before I went to bed that night, I told him, all you need to do is apologize. And he looked at me like he was so angry, and he didn't apologize. I went to sleep, and in the middle of the night, he woke up and he was yelling at me for waking him up. And I got down on the floor on like this like futon kind of chair. I was curled up in a ball and I didn't feel safe. So I went to sleep there, and he got out of bed and he was just really angry, and he was yelling at me and telling me how it's 4:00 in the morning. I need to work in the morning. You're inconsiderate, and just like really getting angry. I did not retaliate. I didn't say anything. The only thing I said is, you're scaring me. And his response was, quit acting like a victim. I just prayed and said, you can get through it till the morning. You can get through it. In the morning, I pretended not to be asleep. I pretended to be asleep. He got up and started working, and on a desk in his room. I went into the bathroom. It was going to be his birthday. I had gotten a recipe from his parents of his favorite food to cook on his birthday. Bought him some stuff, online. And there was something else I had done for him too. Had a video made of his family that doesn't live in this country. So I had all this ready. So when I went in the bathroom this morning, he said, I want to cancel my birthday plans. Whatever it is you have planned, I want to cancel them, because you're not going to talk to me right now. And then my birthday is going to be uncomfortable, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I went in the bathroom calmly. I'm like, what is going on? So I came out and I comforted him. And I told him, sit down, let's talk about it. He went into me telling me about all the things I was doing wrong. I don't drink alcohol. And he was, he had told me that it makes him worried because when we go out, if we go out with his friends, how am I going to get along with his friends if I don't drink alcohol? Okay. So everything, was centered around him, and why everything is wrong with me, how my life can't mesh with his life because I'm doing all these things wrong. Never was there a point that he said, I'm so sorry I yelled at you like that. I should never have done that. It was not like that. The morning ended with him sitting on the bed next to me hugging him, comforting him, and saying to him, it's gonna be okay. I am here for you, and we are gonna figure this out. Don't worry, we are gonna figure this out. I left to go back to my apartment. I was sick the whole way home. I'm panicking. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is happening right now? This can't be my life. And I got home, I walked in the door, I looked at my roommate, and I just burst into tears. And she just said to me, "That's enough. That's enough. You're not going back there." And thank God something switched in my mind. I changed all the passwords that I had, because you have to think 3 steps ahead when you're in narcissistic abuse. You have to document everything that happens to you, and you have to think 3 steps ahead. So I changed all my passwords, I figured everything out, and then I called him and broke up with him. At that time was the first time he told me he loved me. "I'm so sorry, I love you, I know I have these problems, and I'm going to go to therapy." It was just, "Please, please, please don't leave. I've never begged anyone before. Please don't go. Everything is going to change. You'll see." I've never had anyone beg like that before. So I kind of just stuck to my guns. I talked to one of his friends the next day, and I told her what happened. She was really, really kind and really nice. And so anyway, I decided, okay, maybe I'm going to give him another chance. I talked to him on the phone again. And I told him, maybe I'll give you another chance. And he said, but you already put me through this. I already am mourning the loss of this, and I'm already feeling terrible. You made me feel terrible, and now all of a sudden you want to take me back? Again, it's my fault. So luckily I have amazing friends, and I went on a hiking trip with a couple girlfriends that day, and one of my girlfriends was like, "Oh no, you're not. Oh no, you are not." I cried. I was so mad at her. I was like, "Why? I want to give him one more chance. I don't understand. Why is it any of your business?" And she said, "Oh, no. She sat me down on the side of a mountain and said, "You are not leaving." And I was mad at her. I'm like, this is none of your business. Anyway, I went home and I called him. I said, no more. I started really researching narcissistic abuse at this time. Really researching it. And I was broken. Again. Really broken. And I ran into a coach named Michelle Nieves, and she has a very popular YouTube channel, and she was my savior in life. She had workshops going on, and I joined a 3-month workshop. I learned about narcissistic abuse and recovery. I learned that narcissistic abuse isn't an isolated incident that you go through when you're older. This is something that actually stems from childhood, and you're getting into relationships with people who remind you of people that were around you, caretakers or parents or whatever, who were around you when you were younger and your brain was developing. You got comfortable with being treated in a certain way. And before this, I had never understood why I was getting into these relationships, but that ends up, what it was. So it made sense that I moved away, from where I was from. It made sense that I got away from my life where I was. And I knew I had been bullied really badly in high school for 5 years. And I didn't know all this was interconnected. I didn't know my childhood was connected with, being bullied, was connected with these relationships that I was getting into, and the kind of treatment that I thought I deserved. And it was really eye-opening, and the healing journey from narcissistic abuse has been very long and very tiresome, and it's been a lot. I came to the point where, because I am a truth teller, I can't let I'm also an empath, so I couldn't let other people go through this. And I decided I was going to study under Michelle, my life coach, and become a life coach specializing in narcissistic abuse and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So this is my story, and there's a lot more to it, but I didn't want to be somebody who is going to be preaching to the choir but hasn't gone through what she's preaching about. So I just want you to understand that going through narcissistic abuse is miserable, it's challenging, it's not for the weak-hearted, but there is a life on the other side of it. You are going to get through it. Once you do get through it, you're going to go through a healing journey, and that healing journey is going to be painful. And if it's not painful, then I want you to look at it and say, am I really feeling my feelings right now? Because these feelings, they need to come to a surface. They need to come to a head. They need to come out. And in order for them to come out, you need to actually feel these feelings that are inside of us. All right, so that's how you move past narcissistic abuse. That's how you go through recovery, is by getting these feelings that you're having to the surface. I highly recommend finding support groups. After this last relationship I was in so many support groups that I couldn't even count anymore. I went from being isolated and feeling as if I was going through this on my own to having so much support. And I truly believe that things are put into our lives at the right time, you know, for a purpose. And the purpose was because I needed to get through it so that I could come on YouTube and come to my clients and people in my meetup groups and be able to help you. So I'm thankful for everything I went through, and I hope that if you made it through this whole video, I sympathize with you. I sympathize with you. If you ever need to get in touch, I will put my email address in the description below. I also, like I mentioned, I have a meetup group, a Los Angeles support meetup group that anyone can be involved in because it is on Zoom. I can put the link below for that meetup group as well. That's free. It's every Wednesday night at 7:00 p.m. Pacific time. And I think that's where I'll leave it for today. So, here's to all the truth tellers out there. You might not all have YouTube channels, but I do, so lucky you. Alright guys, so thank you for bearing with me today. If you watch this video and you enjoy it, don't be shy, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for any future videos on narcissistic abuse recovery and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And as always, I wish you all the love in the world.